This is the Magnus TV310 camera tripod that just arrived today from B&H Photo, Video, and Pro Audio. And it's going to be the latest cheap tripod that doesn't replace this one. Why? Well, let me just tighten the center nut here so it doesn't flop all over the place. And oops! Yeah. Isn't this amazing? Right out of the box like this, too. It really is quite a wonder that something as rudimentary as a camera tripod can be such an engineering project. So around this time last year, I did an experiment with a cheap tripod from Walmart. It didn't go well. The tripod wound up going back. Well, a year later, here I am checking out a cheap tripod from B&H. And just because it's B&H, an e-tailer that sells lots of camera supplies, doesn't necessarily mean that B&H may not try to sell cheap stuff. Because, I mean, if someone will pay for it, then, well, yeah, that kind of thing. Regardless, though, the issue with this tripod is not a B&H problem. It is a fundamental problem with the design, so to speak. The grand total of what's keeping your camera from going like that is a single piece of plastic that the nut is supposed to squeeze when you tighten it. It's kind of flimsy. But more fundamental than that is that this tripod makes the very critical mistake of trying to re-answer a question that even other cheap tripods from years gone by have answered for years. This piece of junk has a bit of a problem with sometimes drooping because the things that snap don't snap like they used to, but at least it can get the vertical movement thing right. Ooh, check it out. A crank. And a little thing goes up and down that has teeth. Even though cheap plastic, and I think these teeth are plastic too. Yet I've had this for years, and only now am I having problems with it, finally. Oh, and this is the part, of course, where someone's like, well, you know, what if you just want to be like, whoop, take a picture and then take your tripod with you? Yeah, well, if you think that this isn't fast, well, leave the thing out, of course. What was that again? About these things with teeth not being fast? Whoop! Hey, smile for the camera! Didn't even have to tighten it. I think this will be my first return to B&H. The good news is that even Magnus, in this cheap price range, actually has a tripod with a crank. I might actually try that next, because I've been looking for a replacement for this thing for quite some time, and I'm just curious what kind of mileage I can get out of a cheap tripod with how I'm not using it under very adverse conditions these days. Wow, it's sitting in the house for recording YouTube videos. Woohoo! Now, I could make a mod project out of this to try and fix this, but it's just the design. I mean, you got one little tiny piece of plastic that isn't getting squeezed, and therefore, free-for-all! Yeah. It would be much better if I spent money on something with an actual crank. Now, let's see how much the return shipping is versus the price of the item itself. Checkmate, B&H. Or so it would seem. I keep forgetting that B&H is a smaller e-tailer and their return policies reflect that. Customer is responsible for return shipping, and there could be a 15% restocking fee. So basically, at this price point, by the time I pay all that and whatnot, it could barely be worth it to return something. This is the kind of return policy that the e-tailers used to do back in the 2000s, actually, when the Newegg's of the world were a lot smaller. And there's a reason why customer service policies evolved into no questions asked return policies with prepaid shipping labels, because it encourages people to buy more, and it encourages people to experiment a little more. With this kind of an old policy from the last decade, I basically should not buy anything from B&H unless I am absolutely certain that it is going to be a sure thing. Anything else, I might be better off going to Newegg, or even Walmart or Target these days. I buy a tripod, I end up learning why e-tailers have certain return policies or why they developed them in the last couple of years. Whatever. MultimediaJay out.